your people. Having celebrated the birth of Martin Luther King Jr., we pray for an end to all forms of racial discrimination and discord, that we may all truly see each other as your children, making us all brothers and sisters. As the inauguration draws near, we pray for peace in our nation. We pray for harmony rooted with injustice and truth. We pray that our nation continues to uphold the most basic human rights: freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, religious freedom, and respect for all human life. We humbly ask that you be in our midst as we make decisions. Guide us in wisdom and love. In your goodness, we ask you to bring an end to this pandemic so that we may live more fully as your children. Help us to promote laws and policies which create jobs so that our people may return to work. We pray that you protect all those in positions of authority, especially police and all first responders. May we all respect them while working peacefully to root out any corruption. Enlarge our hearts to see you and all those we serve and meet, so that peace may reign throughout our land, nation, and world. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we move on to 4, we do not need, so we'll move on to 5, approval of minutes of previous meeting. I need a motion to approve the December 15th, 2020 virtual regular board meeting minutes.
Trustee Levin, so moved.
Trustee Weiss, second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. We move on to mayor's report. First item, I need a motion to set aside the rules of the president and board of trustees to waive the first and second readings of the ordinance ratifying and extending mayoral declaration of emergency related to coronavirus.
Trustee Hargit, so moved.
Second, McCarthy.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Move on to the second item. I need a motion to adopt the resolution appointing Jerry Woods to the Police Pension Board.
So moved, McCarthy.
Second, Whitmore.
Okay, discussion. I just want to say that he's already on the Police Pension Board. This is just to renew his term for another 2 years. All right, roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Another item that's not on there, but I just want to bring up, as you know, our chief, Justin Streed, has moved on to Zion to be their chief and has resigned his position here. I want to congratulate Justin on obtaining the chief position in Zion, and also congratulating him on being our chief for the last 7 years. I'm going to miss him. He's been a and when I'm here on Tuesdays now for some of the day and Thursdays, most of the day, it's really been nice to see him. He's always got a smiling face, and it's really nice talking to him. It's going to be very hard to see him go, but like he told me, he still lives in the village and he'll be around. He will not, he'll be a face around here occasionally too. So, but I set up a committee to look to find another chief. The committee members are Village Administrator Greg Jackson, village attorney, Robert Long, myself, and Michael Street. Now, give you some history on Mike Street. 29-year member of the Winthrop Harbor Fire Department. The last 16 years of that was as chief. He's been in the fire service for 38 years. He teaches at the National Fire Academy, and he's a graduate of the National Fire Academy. He teaches in Glenview at the NIPSTA, which is a Northeast Illinois Public Safety Academy. He is actually involved as a consultant, professional consulting firm, and he is in process of already looking for an assistant chief in a fire department in, I'm not sure what the town, but it's in Michigan. So he does this. He's been doing this for quite a number of years, and he indicated to me when I asked him to sit on this committee, he said he's very honored to sit on it because this fire department means a lot to him. And he wants to make sure, that we look at all the candidates that may apply for this position and pick the best candidate out of everybody. So I just want to let everyone know that that's the committee, and we'll be we'll be sitting together soon. I wanted to bring this across the board, let everyone know who I chose to sit on this committee. So does everybody
That's
have any
great.
questions?
I want to hear all the other qualifications for the other three, because it doesn't sound like you even match up to them. So why don't we get some more people that are that qualified?
I know
I heard the spiel. I didn't hear anything about the rest of you. To me, it just seemed weird. I don't know.
Well, I'll just tell you, Greg Jackson was a former firefighter himself. And Bob Long and I are residents of the village of Winthrop Harbor. So I guess that's all I can really say. But
institutions, Doc.
and so is Mike Street. He's a resident of Village of Winthrop Harbor too. So, but he's very honored to sit on it. And he's looking forward to working with the entire committee and selecting.
I think Justin wanted to have a word or two, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Justin. I like your uniform.
Thank you. There's not many off days, and so today is my full Zion shift. But yeah, I wasn't sure when I was going to have a couple. I won't say a couple minutes because that'll bore everybody out of their mind. But a few seconds to just say you hit it right on the head. I'm still around. I'm still a proud village resident. I'll be working just outside of village limits. I'll be helping for as long as a transition takes with whoever ends up taking my spot. Because there's going to be a lot of things that I just can't hand over the key and say, tag, you're it. So I will be around, and I will be happy to still be very visible throughout the village. The village and the fire department and the staff there mean so much to me. And it's been an enjoyable 7 years as chief, and I've been affiliated with the department essentially since 1996. So it's my life as well. But the professional duty calls and this opportunity in Zion, I just professionally and personally, I couldn't turn away and not pursue. So again, just thank you. I'm still going to be on the Zoom, I think, for a little bit until I have to cut away. If there's any questions on those couple fire department agenda items, the one agenda item, and then a little bit of discussion on the committee about the staffing. And I'll be happy to pipe in if anybody has any questions. Because they're still important, still very important issues to tackle on our side of the building. And just once again, thank you to the mayor for your generosity with the village and the board for your support over the years. There's just lots of things that I can't even put into words. So thank you all, but I'll still be around. I'll still proudly be around. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All I want to say too, Justin, is the mayor of Zion owes me a lunch or a dinner. We're losing a chief. So, all right. And they're gaining a great guy. So, all right. So that's really all. I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed as to who the committee is going to be. So with that, I'll move on to a village administrator's report. Greg Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board of Trustees. And real quick, I told Justin when he and I had our discussion that good things happen to good people. So we wish him Godspeed as he takes on this new role. I only have a couple items, but the one most prominent here is the tree preservation ordinance. Want to just give some context and a couple bullet points. You have a pretty extensive package that was put with the board package. It includes my letter of recommendation or my staff memo for recommendation. It has the ordinance itself. It has a PowerPoint presentation that the Sustainability Committee put together, as well as a set of email communication that was sent to us about positions as it related to the tree preservation ordinance. And in addition, Julie received 4 today that were not included in your package, obviously, because your package got to you last week. But you all received those, so you were able to take in that communication that she received before the deadline of 4 o'clock. Just to give you some context, the role of the advisory committee, as it was formed about a year ago, was to be an advisory committee to the mayor and staff on opportunities to make municipal government practices more eco-friendly, and then to look at ways for outreach and education into the community about eco-friendly projects, opportunities. But it was mainly predominantly to address the issues of how do we pave our roads in the most eco-friendly way? What kind of vehicles do we use? What kind of fuel do we use? Buildings with solar or potential leads. One of the issues that got brought up during the early days of this was the tree preservation ordinance. And this also came about in a board meeting when a group of citizens addressed the board about the need for a tree preservation ordinance. We took this opportunity to use the development of a tree preservation ordinance as a vehicle for discussion. For some reason, there's an idea that just because this preservation ordinance was presented to staff and some of the elected officials and it was going to the board today, that it was dead. And again, I would say this is a next step in the policymaking process. This got presented to myself in February of 2020, and we got hit with COVID a little less than 30 days after that. So we all know what happened to our human resources and our financial resources. We did significant reductions in staff, and I want to make sure that's out there so the public's fully aware. They may not have recognized it, and if they didn't, that's a good thing, because it means that we were providing services as seamlessly as possible with substantially reduced resources in public works, in administration, in parks for a period of time. Police department reduced their staffing, community service officers were gone. So there were some significant reductions, and we're still feeling the impact of the lack of revenues. So it kind of handcuffed us a little bit. The greatest concerns with this proposal, as I look at it, were some of the lobbying efforts once this proposal was drafted and distributed. Communication to potential supporters was left a little bit to be desired. There was some misinformation circulating out there. Calls were being made to me asking if ABC were true. I had to dispel those. They said, well, somebody talked to me about the tree ordinance, and they said this was the case. So it got a little bit messy. And I think the committee maybe overstepped when they started doing lobbyist work on this, because that was not their function. My recommendations that I presented to you were a result of their that when they were concurrently drafting and then submitting that ordinance to us continuing to look and see if there was a need for a tree ordinance. Staff felt there wasn't. I sent to the board today what I was able to get, a copy of the GIS layer for the tree canopy. And as each one of you have probably seen, we have a significant tree canopy, especially when you look around the rest of Lake County, up in this neck of the woods. I mean, we really have, and that's something to be proud of. It's not something that we should take for granted. The impact of property values that have come up about this, there are academic studies all over the place that say that the trees do not impact trees across the street do not impact the property value. It's more the trees on the property. And the further you get away from the trees, the less of the impact on the property value. And that property values are equally, if not more, impacted by education, roads, infrastructure, and things of that nature. We have not had a full vetting of this proposal. We have heard from a group of residents who live near a particular piece of property who have voiced their desire for preservation of trees. When we look at the numbers, that comes out to 0.48% of the total parcels of residential, or the total number of residential parcels in Winthrop Harbor. It would be even less if we included all the parcels. So that means 99.6 or better percent of the public haven't even had a chance to have some input on this, one way or the other, though we know we wouldn't get full participation. So we have to ask the question, what are the other voices in the community saying about this? I know we have gotten calls of people that have gotten wind of this who said, you know what, I may be for this, but I'm not happy about somebody telling me what I can do and what I can't do. We have plenty of existing ordinances which address the tree canopy. We have gone through that. I've gotten feedback from staff on that. We also have strong existing intergovernmental agreements with both the Army Corps of Engineers and Stormwater Management as it pertains to environmental issues. My findings in this were just of one staff member. The other staff members and elected officials who reviewed the ordinance did it objectively, did it with an open mind, looked at it from a standpoint of less about mandate and more about education and collaboration to secure compliance. There's talk about what about the tree city designation? Isn't that something we want? I think everybody would want to have the tree city designation. I don't think we're any exception to that, but we have to be practical on what can be done and what can't be done. The tree city designation comes with a commitment and allocation of both human and financial resources to begin with, at a minimum $2 per everybody who lives in the village, the total population per year. There's 170 communities that are Tree USA communities in the state of Illinois. That makes up 8.2% of the municipalities. And that doesn't mean Winthrop Harbor shouldn't be one of them. But with our very limited resources, I guess we have to ask why 91.8% of the municipalities in the state of Illinois are not tree city designation. The village isn't anti-tree by any stretch. We've done some very good environmental things, and some of that falls back to Dorothy Nolan and her work with the Sustainability Committee. There's projects that we still have that we look to go forward with, like the community garden. In the last 18 months, so everybody's clear that we're not anti-tree, we planted 81 trees in the village. Trustee Whitmore was part of that planting. Staff was part of that planting. Both the board and staff were engaged with that.
Right.
I provided the board with options. This is part of the policy-making process. Policy doesn't happen overnight, doesn't happen in a vacuum, doesn't happen, especially in government, at a drop of a dime. In a corporation, you can make a decision and do King and I and say, so let it be written, so let it be done, but not so much in government. Because I personally disagree with the need for a tree ordinance based on everything else we've got going, the canopy, the existing ordinances, doesn't mean I dismiss the view of the other individuals who support a tree ordinance. My job is to provide a recommendation and identify options for consideration. I believe the resources we have in place meet the village's need, again, as other staff members and elected officials believe. However, it's the body's decision. The board can table this completely, can adopt it as is after legal review, or can table it until a later date to be determined post-COVID. So we have the actual resources necessary to move forward with this. And to put something together that's more education and collaborative based versus something that's compliance based by mandate. One of the other things that Tree City says is that you have to have a tree ordinance in place. That's absolutely correct. But it has to have the force of law. The force of law.
And those are the exact words.
Quote
in
unquote.
there. Right.
Quote unquote. So my recommendation to the board is that if the board feels that we can take the tree ordinance a step further, that we would table this until a later date and post-COVID, begin discussions with staff and members of the board if the mayor designates, and move it along strictly. Again, I would encourage the board from an education and collaboration standpoint versus a mandate and compliance standpoint. The other thing we need to recognize, which I don't think was done very well, in my opinion, was looking at this from an entire village perspective. What we implement in a policy is not confined, in this case, will not be confined to one area. We have to keep in account the feelings, the sentiments, the value this ordinance brings throughout the community. And so whether it's from Sheridan Road at 101 Sheridan down to 14th Street, going back east, going back west, we've got to make sure we've got, in my opinion, in order for the policy to be effective, we have stakeholder understanding and involvement at all levels. We may turn out and find out through the course of this, through education and outreach, that the bulk of the community doesn't see a need for it. We may find that there are other people that do feel a need for it, but right now we don't know. But to the credit of the members of the Sustainability Committee, they worked hard on the document they put together. Their intentions were to have a tree preservation ordinance adopted by the village board. This was going to be, I told them go all out. I said, give us what you think needs to be there. Do not pull any punches. Let the board, let members of the board and staff look at what's acceptable, what's duplicit, and what just won't work. And then we can take the discussion that way. And I believe that's what we have between the input of trustees and staff at this point. So if we're going to move, we've got a next step now. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I just want to also thank Trustee Whitmore and Trustee Hargett for reviewing the ordinance, tree ordinance, and coming back with your comments on it. So it took time to review that. I looked through it as well. Pretty lengthy ordinance, but thank you for doing that. And I agree with coming back with some type of ordinance that's educational and collaborative. I do, but I mean, right now we just have to wait until we get through this so we can get more residents in the village to chime in on this and give us their opinions. So, anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I want to jump in. I did appreciate being a part of that review. It was a good discussion, and I want to make sure first and foremost to thank the Sustainability Committee, because it's clear looking at that, the time and effort that they put in to go through ordinances from other communities to try and pick out pieces that they believe were best practice and would fit with our community. And talking to Rebecca, who was one of the primary authors of that, I mean, her passion is clear and evident, and had really good discussion with her. And have exchanged some emails since then. So I mean that huge gratitude to them, because that got the discussion going, right? It forced us to then have to look at that and reflect on it, talk to other residents, but also to dig into things like our canopy coverage to say, is this an issue? And also, is it something that we believe is needed to prevent any sort of future concern? And I think as we looked at that, our canopy coverage is pretty incredible when you look at that report. But it does help us now to use that canopy report to narrow in and say there are some areas of our community that you look at and say, well, why isn't there green there? Oh, well, that's a farm field. Is it always going to be, or what consideration should there be if that were to be developed for plantings? But we have that addressed already in our subdivisions ordinance. And so it made us look for those linkages. And so I think getting that discussion started was really, really valuable. I do see value in having a tree preservation ordinance if we want to pursue that Tree City USA. And I think that's an if, and something that we need to keep digging into, especially as we look at the financial pieces that come with that. But I think we have demonstrated our commitment to sustainability. I think this is another iteration of that. We've, introduced textile recycling, electronic recycling. We added recycling at the parks. We've reduced our salt usage through public works to make sure that we're preventing too much salt from running off into the watersheds. As Greg mentioned, our own tree plantings. And so, there's more to look into here. For me, as I was going through this, I also tried to just go drive around town and look and say, okay, there's really two primary use cases for this. One is the piece of if someone on a developed parcel already, if a homeowner wants to cut down a tree today, do we believe that they should have to get a permit and present to any sort of added special committee to have to get permission to cut that tree down and then have to go plant a replacement tree or trees depending on the diameter of that, right? So there's that piece, and for me, I look at that and say, well, no, right? There's property owner rights for your home, and so there's that piece, and then there's development. And so when I drove around and looked at parcels that are open for development, the parcel there off of Monroe is unique in its size, and it's in a very wooded part of town. Most of the other wooded parcels are small residential lots that, if they were to be developed, would largely have to be cleared just to make room for a home, a driveway, a yard to get utilities in. And I just thought about, okay, well, if someone wanted to come and build a house, would we add those hurdles in the way and say, okay, well, that was a well-wooded small parcel. Now you need to plant these. If a developer was going to walk away, would we stick to that? The other one that I drove past a couple of times was the parcel next to Cornerstone on Sheridan Road that was donated to the village. It's a wooded vacant lot next to 2 motels. If a developer were to come in and say, we would like that village parcel, we're going to take down these motels and build a brand new hotel here, a resort, a movie theater, right? Something a new restaurant. Would we say, well, but you got to plant 1,000 trees now to replace those? And whatever the math would work out to be based on the number of trees there, I think we would probably say, we're willing to work with you. And so if it's not an ordinance that we're really convicted about and say, no, this is critical path, and we'd be willing to kind of set it aside for those parcels. And I'm just sharing my opinion on it. I don't know that we want to put it in place, and especially the resource that it could potentially place on staff and budgets. So those are kind of my concerns is that balance between individual property owner rights. I think if we have an ordinance, it should be more education based. I think it's good to introduce ideas to our residents of these are native species of trees. If you're going to plant a tree, plant this kind. These are the ones that really add to our ecosystem. These ones are invasive. Even advising them to say, if you take down a tree, we suggest that you replace it with this many trees. And based on our canopy, we have recommendations on where in town those trees should be planted. I think those are good things, but there's still some refining to do here. I'm happy to be a part of that refining process and continue to work more closely with the Sustainability Committee to get to that point to where we have something that we feel more confident to bring before the public as a whole. And I'll trust staff's judgment on the right timing of that and based on all of our other priorities. Now for that particular parcel over Monroe, that's the part of trying to separate the proposed development there from the ordinance itself. And that is challenging, but on that piece of property, I will say, and I believe this is an accurate statement, is that the person who wants to develop that will receive no more or no less rights or be held to no more or no less burdens from us as a community than the other homes that were developed in that wooded area of town. Right, we have our ordinances. If they wanted to do something outside of that, they would have to come for a variance and go before public hearings. But so far, no plans have been turned in. Bob, I had one question for you, and that was, if a existing homeowners association, I'm thinking of the Pines, I don't think we have many of them, or if this area of the Oaks at this point for an established subdivision, if they wanted added regulation on trees within their neighborhood, could they pursue the creation of a homeowners association for, like, say, the Oaks, and require anyone within that homeowners association to go through some added steps? Is that allowable?
After the fact, it's very difficult. It can theoretically be done, but it would take a 100% vote of all the people in a subdivision to join up with such a thing. And I've never seen that happen in practicing law for 40 years. I'm not saying it can't happen. The other problem is that property down that you're talking about is not actually inside the Oak subdivision. It sits outside of it.
Yeah, no, I understood. But if they wanted to take a stand as a subdivision, you're saying there's a chance, just a very, very slim one. But so for me, again, I'm comfortable with tabling it. I think as we looked at Canopy, as we look at the potential of other developable properties, there's not an urgency sitting in front of us for it. And so I trust staff's judgment on the right time to keep moving this forward.
So we do have to think about, like, I just purchased a home, right? And the village owes me 2 trees then, because 2 of my boulevard trees are gone now. And my thing's empty. So if we go that far, are we going to say we got to replace all our trees that die? And because we're held accountable for, doesn't matter how they're gone. If they're gone, if they die, we as a village should be responsible to replace all these trees. We've done a pretty good job trying to do that. And we're grinding stumps all the time and we're doing that kind of stuff. But I had to cut my trees down myself because they were ugly and I didn't like it. And I wasn't waiting for my own department to do that. I mean, we got to take that into account too. When you start talking about all this stuff, you're going to add a lot of extra costs. I'm not against it or for it. I'm not saying anything about that. I say you better take in the whole picture, because there's a lot of added costs that come with something like this. And if we're going to do this for other people and say you got to replace, well, then we as a village have to start replacing. If a tree's gone or it blows down or it gets damaged, now we should replace that. If this is what we're saying to these people that want to remove it for other reasons. I mean, there's a lot involved in that from a financial point. And like you're saying, we're going to tell people we're going to charge you $2 a year per person. They're going to charge us, or are we going to charge them, or what comes out of that?
Yeah.
No, it would be a village expense. There's no doubt about that. You can't force participation into that certification to the taxpayers. I mean.
And I'll chime in just briefly. I don't want to take up too much more of everyone's time. Trustee Hargett really hit the nail on the head. First off, I do want to thank Rebecca and the entire sustainability committee. They put a lot of time and energy and effort into this. I don't want that to go unnoticed. I know that they went through several different communities, ordinances to go ahead and put this together. And again, I don't want their time and energy to go unnoticed. I definitely feel that we could use something in place, especially like Buddy said, if we want to go ahead and be a part of that moving forward. However, with that being said, I feel more strongly about having a homeowner and property rights. I definitely don't want us to overstep. I know I've said this a couple times that I think we're going to open a can of worms if we're going to overstep on property owners' rights. I definitely think that the current proposal is an overstep. I don't want us to have that moving forward. I do feel that there's a lot of things that we could meet in the middle on. And I think that is definitely something that we should move forward in the future and really kind of see where that middle ground is, where it is fair for the entire community and the entire village. I know that this is definitely sparked from a one-off issue. I don't think something like this would most likely happen again in the village. I don't think currently we have the manpower or the resources to facilitate what was put into place. And again, I think going forward in the future, that's something that we can kind of work on together to meet in the middle. What are we responsible for? What is the community responsible for? What are the individual property owners responsible for? So we can really kind of find that middle ground for everybody. I definitely am a firm believer in education and incentive programs. I would love to see more of that moving forward. I know that this commission does have that plan in the future to move forward with more education programs. I mean, obviously right now with COVID, it's a little harder. But I definitely feel that that should be a majority of what it's going to look like for the future of having education programs, having people come in and explain what would be best planted, what would do best here in the village in certain areas. And I really would like to see that more so moving forward.
If I could interject one point to piggyback on what Trustee Whitmore just said. The legitimacy of any public policy is based on your ability to enforce that in part. And the lack of resources we have and how we would ensure compliance with a mandated tree ordinance, that could be a challenge. I mean, we find ourselves in difficult times right now we find ourselves more of a complaint-driven response into code enforcement. So if we're adding to that burden, we have to acknowledge that there would have to be some kind of resources allocated in order for us to be effective on that. I mean, once the board decides the policy as we go down the road, and it'll be more, more detailed and well thought out, we're going to be responsible, staff is going to be responsible for the implementation, and that implementation includes enforcement. So I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that, because there's a cost, not only manpower, opportunity cost, but hard dollar cost involved with that. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't, bring that up to the front. So
one other just real quick thing on this, and it was one of the emails that came in from a member of the Sustainability Committee had some criticism of kind of the process of, they went and put all this effort into it. And now we're giving the refining and direction of what that should look like. And so I do want to acknowledge, I think there's some fairness to that criticism. And for me, I compare it to when ordinances have made their way to the board that came through the PZB and EDC, which I'm the liaison to, where I'm sitting in those meetings with those groups, along with staff, with Pat, having those discussions up front. And I think that the marching orders of, go look and, bring all ideas is good. But I think now we're finding that maybe a little bit more refined board discussion early on could have prevented some of the frustration that group is experiencing now.
I disagree, Trustee, respectfully. I disagree. This was a one-off in the sense that this committee has no policymaking authority where PZB does, or work with policy. This is a committee that's strictly advisory to the mayor and to staff. And the only reason we did that was we wanted to foster the conversation. We wanted to have the dialogue. So rather than have trustees engaged on the front end, let's face it, time's at a premium. So having trustees engaged at the front end, it served us better to have it on the back end. Either way, we're where we want it to be. I mean, so and the only reason I responded was because I wanted to take accountability for that. That was my decision. My decision was, yeah, this isn't something that's within the purview of the mission of the organization, but you know what? The discussion needs to be had, and it's been brought up in more than one area. So let's just see where it goes. So that was my thought on it, Trustee Hargett.
Greg, I just want to add, I think it was you who mentioned in the material that the comprehensive plan that we have, we don't talk about a lot, but over 2 years of time went into that, a lot of resources, grants from CMAP, that donated that time and resources to put that together. And I do think it's important that every once in a while we kind of go back to see where we're at with that. This was something that was never brought up in those discussions about that. And they were very, thorough discussions, with all aspects of the community. So it's not like we didn't look at important things like this. So if we are going to move forward, I would like us to see, how would that fit into the comprehensive plan, and what do we need to update within that plan, because I do feel it is still relevant to what we're doing. And it's supposed to be a living document that can help guide us. And when the time comes to change and update it, we do that. So this might be a good opportunity to kind of incorporate that into there, because I would hate to see not just the times they spend on this ordinance, but the time that's been invested already in that go to waste, when we could easily kind of reevaluate that.
Well, and as-
I would like to see, having worked in the community, Village of Wilmette, where they did have mandates placed at what you can do with your trees or not. In the property that I managed, whenever we wanted to do any tree pruning or even wanted to remove a dead tree, we had to get an arborist involved. We had to apply for a permit to the village. And even in some instances, they wouldn't allow us to do certain things to the trees that the arborist recommended. And it was really frustrating on one foot, and that where the mandates are placed on the property owner. And so, you know, it's something that we need to really look at before we draft any kind of an ordinance. And I would agree with the Administrator Greg that we should table this ordinance with no further action, but to redraft the ordinance without mandates, instead with a goal of education and collaboration. I think that's the road that we should take and see what we come up with in the future, especially with the pandemic still ongoing.
Well, and as Greg mentioned, I would love to get more participation throughout the village. I would like to see this in a more broader perspective from people all across Winthrop Harbor, not just a specific area. I think a lot of people, you know, even on the north and east side might have a lot of different intake on what they would want to see in this ordinance moving forward too. So I would like to get a much more broader perspective if we were to move forward with this.
I would like to thank everyone for their input, but I also would like to say regarding the Sustainability Committee, the committee developed, you know, put together by myself. I want them to understand too that, you know, this ordinance, this tree preservation ordinance isn't going away. We just need to, like Trustee Whitmore said, we need to get more input. And I agree, we do need to get more input than just, you know, 7, 8, 10 people in the village. So once we get through this, you know, COVID, you know, we will definitely revisit this. I'll make sure of it. So, anybody else have any?
So if I'm gonna ask then, my marching orders are to we're gonna table it and then begin to develop a plan for addressing it once we start seeing some COVID relief. And I'm looking at Trustee Hargett when they say COVID.
Correct. Correct.
So when we get some COVID relief, so we can start moving to the next phase on this, which is how do we take it and make it an education collaboration? How does
And incentive. I like the incentive idea too.
and put that together, and as well as get the input from the community as to the viability of this ordinance. So
Correct. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Greg, correct. That's correct. All right.
okay.
You have anything else, Greg?
One other thing is that the House at the end of the last session passed a House bill that put some heavy unfunded mandates on with law enforcement reform, the criminal justice reform. Some of it involves the purchase of body cams, mandated on various years based on the populations of the municipalities. I'm still going through it. I'm looking at the MIL notes. It's 711 pages. So we made a copy of it and I'm starting to go through it with pen and make notes. So as soon as I get a better grasp on all the intricacies, I'll make sure that I share it with the board in a memo, at least so we can figure out how we're going to pay for some of this, because we know how good the state of Illinois is about giving us money for things they want us to do.
So since the state thought this was such a good idea, are they going to be providing funding for the body cams?
Nope.
Unfunded mandate. And I wonder how many of our elected officials actually read the 711 pages
We know how they
before they
voted.
voted on it.
We know how they voted. In fact, I think the only senator on the Democratic side that didn't vote for it was Tony Munoz, and that's because he's a Chicago police officer. And but it was quick. It was under the clock ticking down, and
Happened really fast.
when they say that there was plenty of input, I would argue that, I would argue to the contrary. I don't think there was adequate input. So, nor do the state's attorneys, nor do the chiefs of police, nor do the collective bargaining units for the law enforcement. So it's another thing another hurdle we've got to overcome.
Greg, as
Yeah,
we're talking about kind of other governing bodies, have you heard any talk at the county level? I had heard that at F&A a couple of weeks ago, they mentioned that there's 12 million in CARES Act dollars. Is there any talk of allowing local municipalities to put in for that?
We have a city county managers meeting tomorrow at noon. And that's one of the topics we're going to be discussing as to where we at with the remaining CARES fund. I will say that in watching some of the policy briefs that were coming from some of the players on C-SPAN and the cable news stations, is that President-elect Biden right now, but President Biden is introducing a new CARES type of act, HEROES Act, which allows money for both state and local governments to recoup some money. We don't know where that dollar is going to be yet. We don't know. Remember, it took 5 months for that last batch of CARES Act, the most recent one to come, or HEROES Act to come through. So we don't know how long it's going to take. But, we're hoping that we can realize something by the close of the fiscal year, but, who knows? But I will let you know, I will communicate Trustee Hargett and to the rest of the board what we get out of that meeting tomorrow.
Very good, Greg. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So let's see, we move on to clerk's correspondence.
I
Julie?
have nothing.
Nothing?
No.
Move on to old business. There is none. So we move on to new business, committee reports, community development. Trustee Hargett.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the guidelines and approval procedures for TIF grant supporting the Sheridan Road TIF redevelopment plan.
Trustee Weiss, second.
All right, any discussion on that, please?
Yeah, I'll ask Pat to chime in just a second to answer any questions or if there's more detail he wants to provide, but I do want to just give huge kudos to Pat. And then this goes back to pre-COVID, some of the discussions at the EDC, which feels so long ago now, on what exactly this should look like. Early on, when we started talking about establishing a TIF district down Sheridan Road and, how can we best invest in that commercial corridor? We had very preliminary discussions on, what we wanted some of these things to look like, but knew that the ability to have any funds going into the TIF was still a ways off. And so I know there's been a lot of research and discussion, over the last year or so to get to this point of bringing it to the board. So just wanted to thank Pat for continuing to move this along.
I read a very thick document, on the packet. And I like the ideas. I like some of the grant options and stuff. It's going to be a good thing. We just have to make sure we have money in the coffers to do that. So. Well,
I will say, this is giving us the guidelines to work through that. It's not guaranteeing any set number of funds, per fiscal year. So we'll have to look at that year over year. I think a lot of the things that are being highlighted here, as soon as we brought up the idea of TIF, we had businesses calling saying, well, what about facade improvement? What about building? What about signage? So I think it's going to address a lot of those things that businesses were interested in as soon as the idea of a TIF was presented. I think we do have to find that balance in our messaging that, a TIF is, there's nothing magic about it. And the goal of the TIF is to increase the value of the properties in that corridor. And I think, as Pat and I have talked about this along the way, he's always been very upfront and honest with businesses about, that's the goal here, is to increase the value. And we always know that when values go up, that means your taxable value goes up. Your property taxes will go up, but then it's feeding back in to help us continue to be able to offer incentives in that corridor. So we do want to make sure that businesses are aware that it's an incentive. It can help them do some of the things that they want to do to help their business, but the goal is to see values rise in this corridor.
You know what, Trustee Hargett, I wish there were other programs that could be self-funded like this so we can keep going. So Pat, do you think you can come up with some other programs that can be self-funded?
Would be nice.
This is the best I can do so far. Give me some more time.
It's called Powerball.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
I know tickets.
And
All right,
I'll just add, Mayor and trustees, that, yeah, the intention here is to have a response to anybody who is asking if we have an incentive. And with this type of a program, it doesn't guarantee that we have funds available. It suggests that if they are intending to do some improvements in their property, that there may be a way for us to assist them using some of their future tax dollars. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. Rather than just waiting until that TIF fund accumulates money, which may take several years, this is intended to try to kickstart it so that we can have something to bring to businesses today.
Very good. All right. Any other discussion on that item?
Mr. Mayor, just a point,
Yes.
point of information. This is, Pat's been working on this for a period of time.
Yes.
So I mean, this was something that didn't just come up. He had been working on this since concurrently and post the approval of TIF District 2.
Mhm.
So he's been driving this and pushing this forward. And so I'm glad I want to thank Pat and glad that we're where we're at today with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember talking about it when I became mayor, so it's 4 years ago. So thank you, Pat. All right. No other discussion. I just need a roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, the next two are related, but we'll take them one at a time. Make a motion to approve PZB recommendation to approve docket 01-PZB-21 and the petitioner's request for a variance to the front yard setback requirement of the Winthrop Harbor zoning code for R2 properties as presented.
Trustee Marabella, second.
Any discussion on that?
So this went to the PZB, it was unanimously approved to come to us for official approval. So a home was built over on Cavan with a setback. The garage is set too far forward, creating a smaller yard than is allowed for the front yard. The home is already built. It was there's a lot of discussion at the meeting. It was an honest mistake by the developer. And he's one who has developed other properties in town we've never had any issues with or reason to believe that there was some manipulation or devious actions here. So yeah, PZB unanimously approved and recommending it here as well.
It's just 10 feet closer to the street, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Any other discussion on that?
When was this built?
Just recently.
Yeah, I think he started construction sometime in the fall, I believe, but
That's correct, Mayor. They're actually waiting on the decision for this, asking for occupancy, so it's just being finished now.
all right. No other discussion. I'll ask for a roll call.
Target,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Marabella.
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then the next one is related, and that's approving an ordinance approving a variance to Lafayette and Melissa Knox to allow construction of a residence encroaching over the front yard zoning setback line in regards to PZB file 01-PZB-21.
Trustee
Trustee
White,
Marabella,
second.
second. Yeah.
All right, discussion. It's basically what you just said, Trustee Hargit. All right. Any other comments? All right, move on to roll call.
Target,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Trustee Hargit. We move on to finance. Trustee Weiss.
Thank you. I move that we approve accounts payable warrant 2020-14 in the amount of $175,783.45.
McCarthy, second.
All right, discussion. I just have one item. If you turn to December 2020 manual checks, page 2 of that. Give you a second to get there. The last item on that, my wife went shopping for transparency, in case someone's watching this. My wife went shopping with Scott on 2 days. One day she went with Scott. The next day, Scott couldn't go, so my wife went by herself. And she did use the tax exempt with the village, but she put it on our credit card, the $1,145.86. And that's just a reimbursement to her to pay off the credit card that she put that charge on for Toys for Our Tots. That's all I wanted to bring up. I just didn't want that to, it does say for Toys for Our Tots program, but I just wanted to clarify that for anyone that might see that down the road. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry? What'd you say, Fritz?
I said, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we got a motion and a second. And so roll call, please.
Hargit,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella, okay,
Aye. There we go.
McCarthy, Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, secondly, I move that we approve the treasurer's report.
Need a
Second.
second?
Second, McCarthy.
Okay, very good. Any discussion on the Treasury report, which Greg sent out today, emailed out today? All right, roll call, please.
Hargit,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Trustee Weiss. We move on to fire. Trustee Levin.
Make a motion for open discussion on action and action on request for disposal of equipment.
What equipment are we looking to dispose of?
Well,
And
it's like 1712, our fire engine.
Okay. Okay, that's the item number 2, Seagrave
Item.
engine 1712, 1966, 1996.
96.
Right.
Right. So I believe Chief's explained in the waiver here that him and Administrator Jackson have talked a few times that the fleet is aging in need of extensive repairs. It's the reserve engine. We also use that engine if Zion's breaks down, they use that as well. At this point, looking at John Tobin, who has worked with Winthrop Harbor Fire forever, with Seagrave, who we purchased the engine from. He can work with us in selling that engine. It's a possibility we could get, give or take $30,000 for that piece of equipment. If Chief Street has anything more.
Is this item costing us too much to keep on the road?
And the only current eligible lieutenant to the rank of battalion chief.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I just hopped back on. Mayor, could you repeat that?
I was just saying, is this item, this 1996 Seagrave engine 1712, is it just costing too much to keep it going? Why we're going to dispose of it?
Well, yeah, yes and no. Our whole fleet actually, that engine is a 96. Our other engine first out is an 01 and the ladder truck is 07. It is costly as a whole.
Right.
Lately, we haven't had to put a ton in 1712, but if we were to use it anymore, we would. And it does make sense to potentially get something while it still has some value that we can hopefully put toward the next purchase. That'll be up to obviously Greg and the board and my successor on how that's handled. But it really makes sense to try and get something now while we can for it.
Mr. Mayor, in regards to that, the chief and I had a conversation today, and I also had a conversation with Assistant Chief Stone because he handles fleet maintenance. We normally don't do this. We take money that when we dispose of items and put it into the general fund to offset expenses or whatever the case may be. We are looking to move forward with a FEMA grant for the purchase of a new engine. So with that being said, we would probably have some kind of match to that, and we're talking about $500,000 for a new engine. What I'd like to do, if the board has no problem with it, and I'll be reviewing this with Pat as well, since he's now involved with some of the finances, I want to take that money and reserve it and just keep it to the side to be our, if we're awarded the FEMA AFG grant, to help support our portion of the contribution to the grant, whatever that 80, 20, 90, 10. Just to get us part of the way there. So if the board doesn't have any problem with that, it's something we don't normally do when we get money in from the sale of disposable vehicles, except for LESO, and that's mandated by federal law on the LESO. So if you're okay with that, if the board's okay with it, that's the approach I'd like to take with that money.
My question is, when whatever fund you put that money in, are you going to put it in where we might be able to make interest on that money until we make that purchase?
Yeah, we'll secure the money into a restricted account, and we'll look for it to be interest bearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Reserves are good because we're going to start doing that in other areas because it's needed.
Yeah.
It's a very smart thing to do. That way we're not wasting it in other places.
Right. All right. Any other item? That's just a discussion item. Okay. Anybody else have anything on that?
I thought he needs a motion for action on it, don't you? Or are you able to?
Yes.
We have to need motion a second? Okay. Okay. I need a motion then. Or did you make a motion, John?
Well, I made the motion to open up the discussion.
Okay.
So I'll make you want me to make the motion on authorizing?
Yep.
The item next, number 2 is the one that you're going to need a motion. Well, that's an ordinance, but you made a motion. I just need a second.
Whitmore, second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, John. You got a couple more items there, though. So.
Yep. Status update on the fire staffing committee. We met on January 7th. That included myself, Trustee Weiss, Greg Jackson, Assistant Chief Stone, and Chief Streed. We discussed many potential ways to overcome the current staffing issues that we are currently facing. We discussed the benefit versus costs and what's going to be best in today's economy and further down the road. We also met, we had held a brief meeting via conference call on January 14th. One of the things that we discussed was that we needed to look into a contract that needed to be pretty much overlooked and double checked before we can present it to the board. Chief Street said that we should have something February 2nd to present to the entire board.
There were both, to Trustee Levin's point, there was additional review on the terms of the contract, as well as Chief Street wanted to have some conversation with, further conversation with staff and the impact the contract would have on in-house people. The framework, I think Trustee Levin's absolutely right. The framework on how we want to proceed is just about ready to be presented to the board for a decision. But again, we're just ironing out some wrinkles before February 2nd.
Very good.
Can I ask if we can discuss any of the options that were talked about during the fire staffing committee?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to go or do you want to take it, John?
If you want to go ahead and I can jump in too.
The options we looked at were at short term, next fiscal year, and then long term, because we know that we've got to deal with not just today, but down the road. First part is to make the determination after the terms of the contract come in and the staffing situation, the in-house staffing issue has been resolved, to go ahead and approve the contract for the remaining fiscal year going into April 30th. Then at May 1st, go ahead and look at continuing that contract while concurrently exploring with a consultant some options for, do we dissolve, do we merge, do we intergovernmental agreement, do we go in-house? Look at all the various options, how those options would be potentially funded, and then bring that to the board as to which they would want us to go ahead and proceed with. But we want to take and bring a handful of options versus one option, two option to the board for the long-term, looking at the long-term viability with a focus first on EMS services because of the call volume we have on EMS via fire, and how we guarantee with our aging demographic that we have proper ALS EMS services provided in the village.
And we want to be fair too with the interim chief, to be included in this as well.
Yep.
Any comments, Justin?
No, you guys said it really well. I think Trustee Levin just hit one of the big ones from my aspect is, as I mentioned, a bit ago when I kind of said my farewell, this isn't something just to say to my successor or the interim successor, here you go, deal with it. So they should have some input and buy-in on the framework. Not that whoever it will be hasn't, our other chief staff has had some input on this, but they should have some more direct input with you guys on it, including Greg and Trustee Levin. And should may potentially just hearing out some of the membership of the department as a whole on just some wrinkles with it before taking official action. So you guys did it really well, but it's just a big step, and I still feel it's a pretty necessary step at some point down the road, even if it's not, tomorrow.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Justin.
I believe we had a situation the other day, and I might be wrong, but I think I'm pretty right on it, where we had 2 calls, and if they would have been in reverse order, we'd have been hurting, because not that one's more important than the other, but when you go out on a call and then you get another call hits back, if you're not staffed properly, it could be very detrimental. And luckily for us, it was in the other favor. But if it would have been the other way, I'm not saying something would have happened or could have, just the potential there for wrongdoing it's right there in your face. So then it becomes liability for the village, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we quite often will double up and have multiple call situations. But yeah, in that circumstance, it was a good thing that the ambulance call was first, because the ambulance got staffed and there was a minor fire call right after that. And they got an engine out the door. But if it was the other way around and that ambulance wasn't quickly out the door, it could have been a different story. But we do have mutual aid to rely on, of course, but we can't just rely on mutual aid all the time. So yeah, good point.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Trustee Levin.
Mhm.
We move on to police, Trustee McCarthy.
Just make a motion to accept the K-9 grant from DAS Charitable Fund in the amount of $6,600.
Trustee Weiss seconds.
All right. Any discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Motion carried. We move on to, thank you, Trustee McCarthy. We move on to Public Works, Trustee Marabella.
I just need to make a motion for the request for the approval for the fiscal year 2021, 2022 for the street improvement program.
That's missed. Yeah. Okay. It's in here as 2020, 2021.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you called it right, trustee Mirabella. It's 21-22.
Yeah, I agree. It's wrong in here. Okay.
Second,
Right.
McCarthy.
Second, all right. I like it. I know we're gonna try to do more on the roads, but that's gonna be Landon and that's going to be Thompson, so at least a part of it. So glad to see that. Looking forward to the spring. So any other comments on that? Discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, trustee Mirabella. We move on to public comments. Anything to present to the board from the public?
The only thing that we got were 4 emails that I submitted to all of you
Yes.
regarding the tree ordinance.
Right.
One from Marilyn Livingston, one from Rita, Mike, and John Higgins, one from Eric Jader, and one from Joy Mix.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's it.
And we read them all. I'm sure everyone did read them. I did, so. All right, nothing else. We move on to unfinished business. I'll start out with trustee McCarthy.
Just as you mentioned the emails, I'm sure, the rest of the board, that people know that we did, receive all those, that we did review it, that we do take all the input into consideration, but we also look at, a number of other things. And we also know what else is out there that's not being said as well. And, I thank the Sustainability Committee for the work they've done. And I do want to see us continue forward and make the best possible choices in regards to this. Just thanks to all the staff for everything they're doing. And of course, thanks to Chief Street for his years of service here. And obviously we know we'll see him around and everything, that he's not disappearing, but congratulations as well. As much as we hate to lose you, I think we're all kind of proud of the fact that, you're doing well and that you're continuing to lead in our community, in which, Zion is a part of our community as well. So congratulations and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee McCarthy.
Did you find it?
Trustee Mirabella.
Oh, I just want to say, I hope Chief Brumlick and his wife get better. I want to say that right away. I wanted to lead in with that because the COVID situation isn't going away anytime soon. I'm a firm believer that we need to get out there and do more things, but we do have to be careful. As a public works department, we had an issue last week and it could have got us if we would have had snow or we'd have had a lot of stuff going on. It could have hurt us in a way that we might not have recovered from it, but we did. We're very grateful that we didn't have a situation, but we were out for a while. So just want everybody to be aware of that. I know we got to get back to, I want to get back to general meetings too. Hopefully we do that. We're not I know everybody's tired of all that stuff. Other than that, we have been working hard at the Public Works. When we were there, we were only off a couple of days. They're out as we speak. They're salting. We started to accumulate some snow. So that's why Tim's not on the call right now. So he had went out. On the other note, I do want to say I appreciate all them people and their time and effort for the tree program. Their time was not unwarranted, as all of us feel. There's different aspects that might change that, and hopefully moving forward, we'll deal with that. And to Justin, I always say as a resident, I'm so glad for him. As a public official, it hurts my heart because he did an amazing job for us when we put him in there. He wasn't greedy about it. He took it on as a role. He did it for half price. It was amazing. Everybody gets along. He created a good community there. And that's why I was so passionate on the other meetings. I know people think, this guy's a big jerk and he just spouts off, but so passionate about it because he did create a good community there. Not that we didn't have a good community before, but now with these younger guys coming in, it's much harder to get guys in. They're getting paid really good money to go elsewhere. And I know I keep beating that horse, but you got to realize in a community like that, we do it. My job does it every day. That community is tight knit. So everybody's got to be on board with what goes forward. So I just hope everybody understands that. And I want to thank Justin for everything he's done. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Trustee Mirabella. Say hi to Ava. Behind you.
Just real quickly, thanks, trustee. And I suspect that community will continue no matter who ends up taking my spot. So thank you.
All right, Trustee Whitmore.
Yeah, first and foremost, congratulations, Chief Street, and thank you so much for all of your hard work and dedication. It's going to be very hard to find someone who has the dedication that you've put into this village for the last 7 years, but I'm sure we can, all come together and find someone that is going to at least hope to live up to, what you've created here. And thank you so much. And again, congratulations. And again, just to go off into the sustainability, and especially, Rebecca, I know she definitely took a lot of time to put together the new proposal for the tree ordinance. And I definitely don't want that to go unnoticed. And I know that I would love to, and I know Trustee Hargett said he would as well, love to work with them moving forward to see where we can meet in the middle and what would best suit the village of Winthrop Harbor. So I would love to continue working with them on that.
Thank you, Trustee Whitmore. Trustee Levin.
Like to wish Chief Street the best. When I started the fire department, he was my lieutenant. And then when I left, I was lieutenant and he was chief. But wish you the best at Zion. Yes, it's going to be nice. I'm sure you're always going to be available for any kind of insight. We appreciate everything that you've done in the community. Also wish the guys at the firehouse the very best. I know that everybody is just on thin ice. We're going to get there. We're going to make things right. And I wish them luck and safety as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Levin.
Thanks, John.
Trustee Weiss. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
No, I said thanks, John. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Weiss.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate Justin for your promotion. And I know it's going to be really hard, doing that. But for the years that you put in with Winthrop Harbor, and it was really a pleasure working with you. And some of the things that you did for me, I really appreciate that too. So, and especially your first name, I like that because my son is also named Justin. So we had something in common there. But yeah, once again, thank you for the hard work and for all the input that you had. And thank you for the transition that you're going to be doing for us too, because that's going to be invaluable, especially for the new person that we select. And I also want to thank the Sustainability Committee for all the hard work and effort that they did. I know that took a lot of work, and so that was a lot of good input. And then also thank you to the staff and to Greg for the hard work that they're still doing with our village. I just appreciate everything that this village stands for. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Weiss. Trustee Hargett.
I will continue the love for Chief Street and say congratulations. Exciting for you and for your family. Our loss is Zion's gain. And now as a resident, now that you're no longer staff, there are plenty of opportunities to volunteer within your community. We've got seats on the EDC. You want to plant trees, I'm sure we can find some, right? So I know that you'll still be around and available. I've always appreciated that in your role as chief too, that we're always willing to make time and talk about any ideas. So really thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
The
only other quick thing I wanted to hit on was just as far as COVID, we did move to tier 2. And so it still does not allow for indoor dining, but we're trending in the right direction that hopefully we'll be to that tier 1 that opens up the indoor dining here soon. Gaming did reopen today. I saw a lot of the gaming places advertising, so machines were turned back on. So that's something. Again, you can sign up on the Lake County Health Department All Vax portal for the vaccine if you're interested in that. continue, socially distancing, washing your hands, and we'll get through this. And wear your mask too.
Thank you, Trustee Hart. I think I got everyone. I'm just gonna once again thank first and foremost Greg for keeping me in the loop as much as possible when I'm not in the village, and department heads for all they do. They're working twice as hard, because of what we had to do with cutbacks, but very much appreciated all that everyone does for the village. Once again, I'd like to thank Justin. I mean, you're a friend, always will be. I'm gonna miss you. But hey, I just come down to Zion and, see you down there, but we'll see you in town. And I'm sure I like what Trustee Hargett said about volunteering. Love to have you in any way, shape or form, but congratulations and good luck, and don't be a stranger. So.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. And I will be around for sure.
And next time you call me, say you want something to talk to me about, I'm not going to let you come over and talk.
Okay, that might be a volunteer opportunity, but I'll remember you said
Okay,
that.
no. I understand. Okay, with that being said, I'm just going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Trustee Weisman, so moves.
Whitmore,
Second.
second.
Okay, all right. Roll call.
Hargit,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Marabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
I
Weiss,
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Be
Stay
safe.
safe, stay
Bye.
healthy, and everyone that's not feeling well, get well soon.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody. Chief Bromlick, I hope you get better, buddy.